chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is a disease of smokers. And their life is even more miserable than a cancer patient. Well, tobacco in India, or rather all over the world, is a problem. Call it minty or call it bubble gummy or whatever you call it, but they eventually add these things. But at the core of everything, you have a problem, you have a tobacco addiction, you will have that addiction over time. Sir, I only have 1 cigarette a day, or I only have 4 cigarettes a day. It's fine. I have a friend who has 1 packet a day. When they mislead a particular youth, they are misleading the next 2 generations.
So the deal with tobacco is not only does it kill you, but it also tricks you into believing that it's something that adds a touch of glamour to your life or makes you cool. This goes especially for the youth. And this year, on the occasion of World No Tobacco Day, we are here to unmask the industry's appeal with Dr. Amit Gawande. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. Let's just start off with the tactics that have been employed by the industry, the tobacco industry at large, since the 1950s back in the West, when smoking was, labeled as something cool in the fashion or the entertainment industry, to how it slowly crept its way through to India. Now that we have at a large scale a problem with tobacco. So, can you just give your thoughts on that first?
Well, tobacco in India, or rather all over the world, is a problem. What has changed is the filters, but the tobacco remains the same. And unfortunately, that is the worst part of the industry today.
Right. So, in terms of marketing to the youth, usually they tend to gravitate towards flavored products or trendy packaging.
Yeah.
So, what sort of impact do you think that has had on the youth of this country, especially?
Today, I think marketing is running the world in some sense of the other. Okay, so whatever they market is what people are consuming, and unfortunately, they're trying to make tobacco or smoking cool, and that's the point that they're trying to make. That it is supposed to be a cool thing to do, and we are trying to go upgrade the coolness in a different ways or fashions by adding flavors, adding colored products, adding many other substances into it. Call it minty or call it bubble gummy or whatever you call it, but they eventually add these things. But at the core of everything, you have a problem, you have a tobacco addiction, you will have that addiction over time.
Which brings me to my next point. Is there any such thing as a mild option or a safe option when it comes to tobacco?
So that's a common question that most people ask. That sir, I only have 1 cigarette a day, or I only have 4 cigarettes a day. It's fine. I have a friend who has 1 packet a day. The one thing what people don't understand about smoking is most people think smoking करोगे तो cancer हो जाएगा, which is true, but there is another disease called COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is a disease of smokers. It is called a disease of smokers most of the time. Today that is changing, but usually it is the case. Disease of smokers because it damages your lung in such a way that when you see these older individuals with oxygen, nasal oxygen on them all the time, they are not cancer patients. They are all COPDs, and their life is even more miserable than a cancer patient, because they have to be on oxygen all the time. They can't even go to the washroom without having oxygen, because they get breathless going to the washroom. Why? Because they had smoked in their life before. So that is the reality that people don't know about. People think कैंसर से बचना है ना, वो बच जाएंगे, उतना किस्मत है हमारा. नहीं, आपको ब्रोंकाइटिस या COPD से बचना है, because वो नहीं बच पाओगे. So don't think of it as only मेरे को कैंसर से बचना है. No, आपको COPD से बचना है, because that is what is going to kill you and not your cancers generally.
Right. So another thing that really helps propagate the tobacco industry's message across to the masses is the normalization of tobacco usage in pop culture. Like you have these OTT platforms, films, and TV shows. So what role does that play, and how can those industries be more responsible in terms of not misleading the youth into consuming tobacco?
I think number one is, well, they are doing their marketing job, I guess. But what they also don't realize is that when they mislead a particular youth, they are misleading the next 2 generations. They are not misleading just this particular kind of youth. The next 2 generations are going to just follow them blindly most of the time, right? So this is what they are not realizing, number one. Number two, for somehow they've gotten to their heads that, or to the youth's heads, that vapes and e-cigarettes are very safe, so you can use as much as you can. Okay, so again, very clearly to mention they are not good for you at all. They are not good for your lung at all. As I said, people just tell them कि इसमें cancer नहीं होगा, इसमें ये नहीं होगा. But as I said, COPD definitely हो सकता है. So any vape, any hookah, any e-cigarette is all bad for you.
Like you mentioned, that COPD is known as a smoker's disease, and which brings me to how the larger impact of tobacco on lung health. Research says that tobacco use is one of the world's leading preventable causes of death. So, your thoughts on that?
Absolutely true. Because this is something we are doing to ourselves.
Right.
Nobody else is doing this to us. We are doing it to us, right? It's the same as alcohol. It's the same as smoking. It's the same as other recreational substances.
Yeah.
We are doing it to us. So it's not somebody else. And why are we doing it to us? Either it is because of cultural impact that you want to put around you. It is most likely about peer pressure.
Right.
If you ever ask a smoker, why do you go to smoke in your office breaks? They're just going to tell you because मेरा दोस्त जा रहा है. Nothing else. It's not like they are craving for it. Sometimes it is just क्योंकि एक जा रहा है तो चलो मैं भी आता हूँ. So peer pressure, very important factor. And number 3 is, again, as you said, to look cool.
Yeah.
Apparently it is a factor here that if you smoke, then you look cooler.
So while you've mentioned that smokers have it the worst way, but if someone says, "Oh, my friend smokes, but I just accompany him, I don't smoke at all," but second-hand smoke can be equally damaging. So is that true, or is that sort of just a myth?
That's absolutely true. So when I said that COPD is a smoker's disease, but I also mentioned that in today that is changing. The reason why I'm saying that is we are getting a lot of female COPD patients now. 5 years back, my ratio was like 90% males were smokers and 10% maybe others who get COPD. Today, that ratio has changed for me. I think today I am looking at 60-40. 60% were the males and the 40% are non-smoker individuals. And why are they coming back? 2 reasons. One is, as you said, a second-hand smoke. Like I told you, there was this funny, well, couldn't say funny, but incident where a man was a very chronic smoker.
Right.
And he was my patient. And then the female who was his wife actually also was COPD. We found out later. When we checked her, I told her just do a check because she always used to cough. I told her to give a check. She was also COPD and she was actually worse than him for some reason.
Oh my.
So second-hand smoke definitely is a problem. And pollution can also make you a bronchitis or a COPD patient, unfortunately, because the smoke eventually goes into the environment. So, and anywhere you are, you're inhaling it.
So now that we've identified the problem and we've propagated it to our audience, what can we do individual level and going forward as a society at large to sort of curb the impact of tobacco and eventually looking at an ideal future where there's no tobacco use, which is like a utopian scenario that I'm giving you. But what are the steps starting from an individual level to a society level that we can take according to you?
See, individually, I have this group that we call as the SA group or the Smokers Anonymous group, okay, where individuals come to me either in a group or individual or privately to try to get smoke free. The first thing that you have to understand is acceptance of the fact that you want to get rid of it. I always urge all the patients, don't come to me if your wife has sent you to me or your mother has sent you to me or your friend has sent you to me. It won't make sense because if you are not ready, how much ever therapy I give you, it is not going to matter. Because today it will, 4 दिन आप छोड़ दोगे, 5 दिन चालू करोगे. So I always tell them, number 1, accept that you want to change and then go ahead. Find out what happens to you. Do you want to have your 50s life or your 60s life to be nice, healthy, where you can roam around the world because you have the money now? Or do you want it to be going to hospitals every day or every week and having oxygen cylinders at home, having 10 inhalers at home? Is that what you want? Just so that you can have a few years of cool smoking life. So that is what they have to select. Nobody else can select for them. Once they do, then there are this particular points of plans or therapies which we can help to cessate them or get rid of smoking for them.
Right.
And one more important thing that I always tell patients, when they come to me, they sometimes say, something, their report comes very bad or something happens in their house and they are emotionally charged. And then they say, okay, now I'm quitting smoking. And I tell them, don't. Emotional decisions of quitting do not last because emotions don't last. they will go away and the smoking will come back. So don't quit on a whim or an emotion, but quit on logical, steps. Don't quit on a whim or an emotion, which most people do. कि आज छोड़ दूंगा, पर फिर again a couple of days or weeks later back to square one.
We've seen, like, I'm sure people watching this may have people around them, friends and family, who must have gone through these motions time and time again.
Absolutely, everybody has.
So, would promoting smoke-free spaces, like a lot of corporates are encouraging smoke-free spaces, so would that also be a game changer?
Yeah. Institutionally or government-wise, the impact that we can create is, I have seen many a times there are types of smokers. Okay, so there are certain smokers who are smoking out of peer pressure or out of easy availability. Also very important. So for example, I've seen this. I'm sure everybody has seen this ever sometimes in their life. कि कोई है दोस्त जो उसको सिगरेट पीना है, but उसको घर पे सिगरेट है नहीं, तो he is very lazy to go down and get one, and he doesn't smoke them. Some might not be, some might be very enthusiastic and going down, but there are some who don't. There are some who are little lazy कि अभी मैं नीचे नहीं जाऊँगा. So that also sort of helps. That's why when you say we go to a smoke-free restaurant or environment, automatically that discipline or that strict ruling helps you to not smoke. Number one. Number two, we should decrease locations of places where you get smokes. So I think it should be, for example, just like wines and bars, when you have these wine shops, that should be the way how cigarettes should be sold. Today, anybody can sell a cigarette, but anybody cannot sell alcohol. Why is that? I think we should also have the same for cigarettes.
Right.
So that if there are less amount of centers, some maybe 10% or 15% of the population might just not go that far.
Most people start smoking when they're either in school or in college. So, do you think spreading more awareness about it at those places, and, like, if I'm not wrong, there's a government mandate that you can't have cigarette shops
Shop around a school or a
exactly.
Yeah, that's true. So awareness around in schools and colleges is very, very important, and I think we are doing that. But I think we should do it in a much bigger scale today. Government should actually initiate plans where they could do it in a bigger scale, and probably get my marketing people involved because they do it better.
Yeah.
So that it is clearly mentioned or clearly portrayed to the younger crowd that what it can do and what it cannot do.
Right.
So hopefully that helps.
That was really, really comprehensive, Dr. Gawande. Okay. Just to close off, we could say that the tobacco industry may be selling an illusion, but now that you've seen this podcast, now you know the truth. So, yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Gawande, for joining us.